Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. So I wanted to start off with something that I'm seeing kind of rumbling around quite a bit. There was, I think this is kind of where it started. There is an article here. Actually, it started over here with Mike Florio, but he was referencing something else. There is Sports Business Journal. It says, nonprofit Packers see threat coming in NFL boom times. CEO plans revenue push to keep pace. I want to read through this. As another offseason of eye-popping player contracts and franchise valuations continues, the chief executive of one of the NFL's flagship franchises fears being left behind. In an interview, Green Bay Packers president and CEO Ed Policy says the new surge of wealth coming into the league threatens the league's vaunted economic parity, and with that in mind, Policy says the Packers will take a more aggressive posture on revenue growth. Now, as we go through this, I want to highlight the last part of that, which is Policy saying we have a plan. I just want to say that because, it's very easy to kind of get caught up in this is why either we're not keeping up and or this is why we're not going to be able to keep up. There's no real reason as of right now to assume that either of those two things are on the horizon, although it is important to keep these things in mind. When Policy made the comments of the number one goal being keep the Packers in Green Bay, everybody lost their mind as though it's an automatic. It's not. It's actually unbelievably difficult, and this is going to kind of go through why that is. Goes on to say that will take three primary forms, Policy said. More off-season events at Lambeau Field, more sponsorship sales, and ticket price hikes. Now, one of the funny things about this, and I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but I don't want to forget that just popped up there. One of the things that I keep seeing is that this discussion, because most people haven't actually read the article, they don't really know what's going on. There's just a discussion that the Packers are saying we can't, or it's hard to keep pace with the NFL or whatever. Whatever the thing is online, what the, summary is. The complaint that I keep hearing is that they're using this as some kind of a pretext to up the prices. Well, first of all, they don't need a pretext to do that. Almost every team across the NFL jacks their prices almost every year, and beyond that, they're saying right here they're going to do it. So it's not some big hidden thing where they prop up this oh man, there's this boogeyman coming. I don't know what we're going to do. And then later on, they jack the prices and they're like, oh, we got to figure it out. They're flat out saying, here's the issue and here's how we're going to solve it. It's a three-part deal. One of them is increasing revenue through ticket increases. I don't know. There's so much lazy just profit motive. Just follow the money. That's all you got to do is follow the money. I saw that before where it was like, the price of oil is going up because of all the stuff in Iran. It's like, so follow the money, man. It's the oil companies, bro. What about them? Well, they're making a lot of money. Okay. So that's why war, really. So big oil got us into a war so that the price of a barrel of oil could go up a little bit and they could make more money. That's not how anything works. Like at all. It's not how pricing works. It's not how supply and demand or elasticity or any of that stuff works. It's just lazy, stupid thinking. It's the same thing here. Well, they're just looking for a reason to raise prices to get more money from the little guy. Bro, do you ever shut up? God, it's so exhausting. Big guy's always going after the little guy, I tell you. Yes, the big guys are all evil and the little guys are all angels. Yes, we know. Oh, and of course I just recorded the next, 20 minutes or so before I realized the audio was jacked up again. I hate this stupid thing. This stupid thing here, whatever you call these things, a little mixer, is always screwing with me. I'm never going to get this episode done, ever. This has been 2 straight days of trying to record this podcast, and I It's never going to get done. Let's try this again, shall we? Continuing. As the league's only nonprofit, the Packers cannot engage in true equity financing. Its public shares it occasionally sells are little more than souvenirs. It has no billionaire owner who can reach into his or her own pocket to fund the team. The Packers have built a corporate reserve fund exceeding $600 million, policy said, but that's less than it appears in the modern NFL context. And I think, believe it or not, Sal probably put this really well. And it's something that I think people are kind of misunderstanding about this. And I'll be honest, even I'm kind of like, I think I'm missing either more is being made of this than needs to be made, or there's still a piece I'm missing. But it does seem like one of the things that fans generally are missing is the scale. Because I feel like for a lot of people, they just see big numbers. You know, that was one of the things when I'd gone to school for medical equipment repair. And one of the things my medical equipment repair teacher told me over at MATC is that you have to, I don't know his exact wording, but you have to sort of rearrange your brain or reformat your brain to understand these bigger numbers, because you're going to be making orders, you know, throwing around tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars like it's nothing. And it seems like people are struggling to they see that the Packers made a profit of like $80 million, and it's like, they're fine. They see that we sell out all our games. They see that we had these public share sales and all that, and they're like, there's plenty of money. Just stop it. Everything's fine. They don't understand the absolute freaking magnitude of these things. What Sal said in the episode yesterday was, you know, the Packers are bringing a knife to a bazooka fight. If we continue here, it says, if you think about any other team, they've got deep-pocketed owners. Most of them are worth significantly more than that, and they could sell less than 10% of their team, give up no controlling interest, and raise a heck of a lot more than that, policy said. Think about this for a second. So again, the Packers make, I think last year they made like $85 million in profit. Do you know how much they made when they sold shares? It raised less than $66 million. So this thing that they've done like once every 20, 30 years, whatever, $65.8 million in extra money they were able to raise. What does a $10 billion company have to do to raise $65.8 million? They would have to sell roughly 0.5% of their company. If they sell the 10%, which I think is the maximum last time I looked into it, if they sell the 10%, a $10 billion organization, how much money is that? That's $1 billion that they can just poof, bring into existence out of thin air. In other words, teams have the capability to do what the Packers did in a stock sale like 20 times. Call it 15 times. And this, of course, doesn't even include the fact that any of these owners at any time can put in their own money, can spend their own money, can use their own money. They just have a pool of, not saying that they would want to, but they have a pool of money that they can access. When the Packers say, don't worry, or they're not saying this, but if they were to say, we have a reserve fund of about $600 million, so does every other billionaire. Now, again, whether they have $600 million in cash just sitting there that they can earmark for their football team, I don't know. But they all have a pool of money that they can access if need be. Goes on to say, policy who took over for retiring Mark Murphy last July says the only answer available to a nonprofit is more revenue, which in turn can cover higher expenses and continue seeding the reserve fund. Quote, we're soon to be the only stadium without naming rights. That's another form of revenue that teams have that the Packers don't. He said, referring to the expected wind down of Chicago's Soldier Field as an NFL venue. That's not a threshold we're looking to cross anytime soon, but we might be a little more aggressive in some other entitlement inventory. So we just hadn't taken advantage of in the past, including things like the training facility entitlement and the Titletown campus. The Packers increased ticket prices between 3 and 11% depending on the section in February, but policy said the data still shows a significant gap between what the team charges and what the market could bear. So, number one, they're underpricing their tickets. I know some people are going to scoff at that and say, oh, whatever. The bottom line is the value of the price is what, or the value of a thing is what somebody's willing to pay for it. So what he's saying is they're artificially holding the tickets lower than what the market would naturally be. And if they just allowed the tickets to be the price at which people would pay it, there'd be a massive skyrocket of prices. In other words, as high as we can go and still fill up the stadium is a much higher number. I think that's an important distinction, too, when they raise the prices and people scoff. They're artificially deflating the price right now, whether you want to believe that or not. The other thing on the tickets, if you think about, too, let's say every home game, 70,000 people. If you raise the price $1, you sell 70,000 tickets, that's $70,000 in additional revenue. If you had 9 home games, that's $630. So if we say that that's actually, we're going to do $10 per, you're talking $6.3 million in increased revenue for every $10 increase. Again, these are such microscopic numbers in comparison to everybody else. Not to mention everybody else is raising their ticket prices too, so we're not really gaining on these teams by doing this. We're at best keeping pace. He said it's their goal to stay in the middle, meaning they will not quite go as hard as they could on pricing, but will still keep adjusting as at least 7 NFL teams open new or comprehensively renovated stadiums in the next decade, forcing up the average price. We'll keep an eye on things, but we may have to be even a little more aggressive in order to remain middle of the pack. In other words, again, we're not really changing. We're just keeping pace with everything else. Many NFL teams look to non-football events like concerts and soccer friendlies to bolster revenue, but Lambeau Field, in a remote small town with a cold climate and no roof, has not historically hosted many. This year, that is changing with 2 Luke Combs concerts and the Notre Dame-Wisconsin college football game. The natural limitations on the venue still apply, policy said, and they'll still bank on a certain scarcity value for Lambeau events. If we could do 1 concert, 1 football game, and 1 other form of event per year, that would be great, policy said. In a fiscal year, including the 2024 season, the most recent in which data is available, the Packers reported $286.4 million in locally generated revenue, up 13% year over year. Most public estimates place them about 12th out of 32 NFL teams in revenue. Remember, that's revenue versus profit, so it's not a different number than what I said. I was just talking about a different thing. Why don't we take a break, come back and read through the, second-ish half of this thing, and then kind of discuss the what I think to be the implications, although, again, I'm still kind of iffy on whether or not I'm missing something or if maybe this isn't as big of a deal as everybody's making it out to be. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. In some ways, policy's diagnosis of the problem is more interesting than the remedy. After all, hasn't the NFL engaged in painstaking collective bargaining and difficult compromises among owners to ensure mom-and-pop teams and small markets stay competitive? He's not the first to suggest that parity is at risk in this new age of wealth. Thank goodness for the salary cap, because without the salary cap, there would be no Green Bay Packers, and I would argue there probably wouldn't be a number of existing very successful NFL teams that are around now, policy said, but it only caps one thing, and that's player salaries. Not capped, coaching salaries, buyouts for fired coaches, the overall size of coaching, training, nutrition, and other support staff, and investment in practice facilities and playing venues, all of which have risen quickly in recent years. Also, the salary cap reflects total league revenues, meaning it could still end up hurting the Packers' books if local revenue doesn't keep up with the Joneses and the Cronkies. Another factor policy didn't mention, the now routine practice of manipulating multi-year contracts to stay within the salary cap, a practice pioneered in the 1990s by his father, which requires owners to have the cash to pay out signing bonuses. To be clear, policy says, this is a mostly forward-looking concern. Right now, the league is as competitive as ever, he said. Finance and economics really don't play into our football decision making right now, and it's my job to ensure that it never does, which is an important distinction and also probably important in understanding what exactly the issue is, because when you look at the balance sheet, you say, so why is this a problem? The answer is it's not. The question is, if we continue on this trajectory, where are we going to be at? Many NFL insiders, including policy, believe the Packers' unique nonprofit status and lack of a singular all-powerful owner has been net positives over the years because the team is run exclusively by professional managers and is never bogged down by family drama. But he's not certain that will continue to be true. Given the pace that the expenses have accelerated over the past few years, if we find ourselves falling behind, it's going to be really hard to catch up, policy said. So we have to keep ourselves in a position where we're not falling behind. All right, so that's the end of the article. So again, a couple things are pretty evident. Number one, we have to start from the standpoint of understanding the magnitude of the finances that we're talking about. With that said, though, I guess either number one, I'm ignorant of how certain things work, or number two, I guess just skeptical that some of the claims are what they seem to be. So first of all, there's no question that these other franchises have access to cash that the Packers don't, if we're talking largely about one-time infusions. If there's some kind of a massive stadium renovation project, they can access this. Kroenke, I think, paid basically out of pocket for SoFi Stadium, like $5 billion. Now, obviously, this is not his actual cash. He's getting bank loans or whatever else, but he's paying for it. But that's not really, like, my concern would more so be the claim that, okay, what about the fact that they can have larger staffs and they can pay larger contracts to coaches? And this is what a lot of Packer fans are talking about. See, this is how you know they're underpaying coaches, because they can't afford it. I don't understand that, because ultimately we all have the same money. What we have is revenue. And honestly, most of the revenue, it doesn't come from ticket prices or any of that stuff. It's the shared revenue, which is why, as long as that's still in place, there's no problems. The NFL is booming. It's making stupid amounts of money. The sports betting, the television revenue obviously is the big one, and that gets split among the teams. And so they're all working from that pile, plus whatever they can pile on top of that. And so the only thing what you would have to convince me of for this to be a problem is that essentially you have 31 billionaires that are all willing to operate at a loss. Because that's what we're talking about, is if they're spending above revenue, because we're not really having a revenue problem. Again, the Packers, and in the articles, said they rank roughly 12th. I don't think we know exactly where, because the Packers are the only one that are kind of publicly available, but they're a middle of the pack revenue team. And so the idea that, well, okay, this billionaire can pay $30 million to this coach. Okay. Well, the problem is you need a coach every year. So if you're going to pay above and beyond what anybody else is willing to pay, because the Packers are constrained by the actual revenue that they bring in, that means you would have to pay every single year above what is viable, above what you're bringing in. On top of that, you'd have to pay for the analytics staff, the training staff. All these things are recurring annual costs. Are you really willing to lose money every single year for this? Now, the strongest argument in favor of yes, they can, is because the real benefit to those organizations is the increase in valuation. So if you're spending $50 million a year, but you're increasing, I don't know how much the value goes up in a year. Like, jeez, they seriously go up 10% a year? Holy crap. So if the average team's value is $5 billion, yeah, so we're talking $500 million. So, you spend $50 million, but your valuation is your value is going up $500 million. You're okay with that. Now, I don't think anybody is. I don't think any owners are actually doing this or would be willing to do this at all. To let this thing be a suck on their income when they don't have to, because guess what? The value's going up anyway. So why spend $50 million? They're not going to. So I'm a little bit thrown off by this argument of these billionaires have deep pockets. Okay, I don't see what that has to do with the coaching, training staff, all that kind of stuff. The only thing that matters is revenue. Now, where do the Packers have a bit of a disadvantage? And this is where maybe the long-term viability thing comes in. What these other teams are doing are building massive stadiums that can host massive events and concerts and all kinds of stuff year-round, bringing in tons of money. On top of that, the stadium is not just the stadium. So SoFi Stadium, as I had mentioned, it hosts the Rams and the Chargers. But it sits inside of a development called Hollywood Park. Inside of Hollywood Park are 3,000 residential units, hotels, 500,000 square feet of retail, office buildings, and entertainment venues. So it was a $5 billion stadium construction, $10 billion to develop that district. What does the district do? The district is bringing in revenue. Revenue is the actual killer here. Revenue is the area where we can be outgrown. This is where we can start to fall behind. Because revenue is what people spend on coaches and things like that. This is where we're not operating at a negative. We're still operating at a profit, but you have these teams that are growing and growing and growing. And the more that these teams continue to build these billion-dollar stadiums inside of these, tens of billions of dollar developments, which that's kind of how Titletown worked, but just on a much smaller scale. Titletown has apartments and hotels and restaurants and things. But think about 3,000 residential units. That's crazy. And then they've got the Kali Hotel and Rooftop, 300 rooms, 13 stories. It's not open yet. It'll be open sometime this year. It'll be available for the whatever, but a massive luxury hotel that is linked to the actual stadium itself. Dallas Cowboys have something similar. Luxury hotel, restaurants, offices, retail, apartments. So there's a bit of a race here. The good news is it doesn't really, it does matter that we don't have a billionaire for this, because we don't have a guy that can go out and say, here's $5 billion to build a stadium, here's $10 billion to develop the area. The Packers have the ability to develop the area. The problem is they don't have the massive amount of money that these guys have to be able to develop as rapidly as they can, which now you start to understand more and more the Titletown district and how forward-thinking Mark Murphy was in seeing this scenario play out. But also there's limitations because we're in a residential area, and they don't have the ability to just plow all the houses down and start building skyscrapers. They can do it little by little, buy up this house, buy up that house. But the point is, and this is where I see the real genuine concern, is this race for continued revenue growth is outside of football. It's outside of the stadium. It's outside of the league year. And all these other guys are starting to find ways to make massive amounts of money. And this is the money that they can spend on things outside of the salary cap to make their teams better. And so, again, it's not that much of an issue now, but it is going to be hard for the Packers to keep pace with all these other teams and their ability to do these things. Everybody's building these new stadiums. So you're going to have to get creative, and policy's kind of laying the groundwork for that. Now, again, he's saying a lot of things. Some of it, I think, is I don't know if it's a deflection or I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe I'm just misunderstanding it or whatever, which is fine. But what I do think, and this is where, again, some of the fans with their this is just laying the groundwork for whatever. There may be a touch of that in terms of he's softening the blow for what's to come. Number one being ticket increases, but I don't think that's that big of a deal. They could have come out any day and just said tickets are going up, 5%, and everybody go, darn. It happens all the time. Packers do it all the time. Teams do it all the time. That's normal. What I think maybe you're getting out in front of a little bit more is the culture shock that's going to come from the Packers giving away naming rights to some of the other things in Titletown and their practice field, which I feel weird saying it, but I will agree with Sal on this one. I don't care. I couldn't give a crap about the name of the training facility, as some people probably do. I certainly couldn't care about anything named in the Titletown district. That's a brand new thing. There's nothing historic that we need to worry about there. Give that away. Look, a lot of people are real touchy and sensitive about this stuff. You know, it shouldn't be all about the money and all about profit, but it is. But it is. And at the end of the day, policy has to be the greedy capitalist who's just trying to earn more revenue, because it's the only way for us to be able to compete with these other massive entities that are finding ways, and they have much easier ways to do it than we do. We have less money and additional limitations. Again, we don't have a dome. We don't have 50 hotels, like giant hotels like in the city of Atlanta that can house all these people to have massive events here. The draft was awesome, and it was a great sort of introduction into what's possible, I think. But there's a lot more work that needs to be done to be able to keep pace. Again, we are one of the most popular franchises, sell out every single home game, and still, apparently, we're around like 12th. And I don't even know if that includes all the additional revenue that other teams are pulling in from their additional districts. You know what I mean? You know, when the Chicago Bears build another stadium, whether that be in the suburbs of Chicago or in Indiana or whatever, this is going to be a big part of that build, because this is the way the NFL is moving right now. You don't just build a stadium, you build a district. And in that district, you have residential areas, you have hotels, you have restaurants, you have business districts, you have all these different things that are massive revenue drivers. And so even if you as an owner spend $50 million above what the actual revenue is from the football season, you're still massively profitable because of all the additional revenue from your district and from all the other events that you host all year round. And so when you own the, for example, Dallas Cowboys or the LA Rams or whatever the team is, your business isn't just those football games. Your business kind of is this district, and a large portion of your revenue are the games that are played from your team. But you also use the stadium to generate revenue year-round. You use the district to generate revenue year-round. It's a much bigger business model than just these pile of players and coaches coming together and playing a game. And again, this is where the Packers and Mark Murphy, with his forethought and good on him, started building Titletown District. Because again, it's probably going to be smaller, but I think they've done a fantastic job, and I'm sure they're going to continue building. I don't know what phase 2 is going to look like, if there is one. Well, actually, let's take a look here. They're planning additional condominiums, multifamily residential buildings, potentially more townhomes. That's still in phase 1. Phase 2, roughly 100,000 square feet of additional commercial space, more retail, restaurants, entertainment concepts. The goal is to expand the live work, play ecosystem around the stadium. Recent additions show that this is still actively happening. For example, Bel Air Cantina restaurant opening in the district, additional cafes and businesses moving into new buildings. The major upcoming addition is the Packers Athletic Club, a members-only fitness center opening a new building in the district. It includes 15,500 square feet of fitness floor, group workout studios, recovery areas, co-working spaces, and cafe. Office space expansion, blah, 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 blah. So there is some undeveloped land yet on top of all the Packers Athletic Club, the Lodge Kohler, all the other things that are already there. Presumably there will be further expansion. So again, I would assume there's going to be a lot of pushback to this in terms of, wanting it to stay more pure. We don't want a roof on the stadium. We don't want, obviously, to build a new stadium. We don't want, the naming rights changed. There's a lot of things that we want to keep pure. And Titletown District is cool, but I'm guessing if you had developed a plan, what if we said, what if we wipe out, take Titletown District, which is just kind of a strip out this way. What if we make that a circle all the way around and we develop that whole, at some point people are going to be like, no, that gets rid of the charm and all these other things. So these are the limitations that are kind of imposed on the Green Bay Packers that a lot of other teams don't have when they build these districts. They already build it with that area built around their stadium. They go out looking for land with that much space so that they can build these giant districts so that they can have this additional revenue. So, we'll see how this goes. I don't see this. I don't foresee this being a big issue. Really, I would have to assume the Packers are on solid footing. Again, the vast majority of the revenue is coming in through shared revenue. The additional revenue that comes in, the Packers are very competitive in that realm. Maybe that's where they rank 12th or whatever. I don't know exactly what that ranking comes from, but they're fine in that regard. They have a very large stadium that they sell out. In terms of the additional revenue, there are limitations, but they do have Titletown District, and so that's going to keep them in the fight. And again, most of the revenue is going to still come from the NFL. The rest of the NFL is the fear is over time, these other stadiums, teams, whatever, are going to start. A larger and larger percentage is going to come from outside of football, but I don't even know if that's true if you think about it, because what's really exploding is the NFL. So even, the Rams built this area. Is it going to get more or less burdensome to the Packers? In other words, is the revenue because what they built is static, right? So they got a hotel that's opening this year. Okay, and the salary cap, just the salary cap is going to go up however many tens of millions of dollars, like $50 million or some craziness, right? So I think the NFL is almost kind of making this less of a concern because of how rapidly it's growing. Because it comes down to what percentage of your revenue comes from where. I mean, this past year was $432.6 million per team, which is a 7.5% increase. So what's another 7.5% on top of that? It's an additional $32.4 million. So you're talking 465. And they talk, well, that's just for the salary cap. Bro, that's way above the salary cap. This is revenue. You do whatever you want with it. The question has more to do with the salary cap. So as long as the salary cap isn't encroaching on the revenue, but it shouldn't be. I don't know why they would allow that to happen. It should be increasing with the revenue, not above and beyond the pace of the revenue. So the idea being, as the NFL explodes in a way that no other business is going to be able to keep pace with, I don't know. I don't see this as being that big of a deal. I think you're going to see the Packers slap some naming rights on stuff. They're going to continue to do Titletown to increase the revenue and try to keep pace with the additional outside revenue. But as long as the NFL continues to explode in the way that it is, the vast majority of revenue for all the teams is going to be from the NFL league office, cutting them, $500 million checks. Again, there's a lot of stuff here, and it's possible I'm missing some kind of an angle or something, but there's certain things in here that I get, and there's other things I'm like, I don't understand why that would be a thing. But this is kind of what I've settled on. I think the outside revenue is the concern. I don't believe NFL owners are just going to run deficits to be able to massively, and again, a lot of this comes down to like some kind of a new structure, new kind of a thing. This isn't new. If owners wanted to run deficits, they could have done it the entire time. They could have been doing this since forever. To my knowledge, they haven't been. So yes, we have a disadvantage about one-time infusions, but that's different because coaches are not one-time infusions. You have to have a coach every single year, and if you're going to overpay a coach, then that's going to be a yearly overpay. And as far as, well, what about the signing bonuses? Signing what, like $40 million? We have that. We can cover that. We can easily cover that with the funds that we have set to the side. So that's not a concern. So, again, I can't see the full big picture out 10 years ahead, and I don't know exactly what the Packers are seeing. But this is my best attempt at trying to comprehend this big storyline that's out there. Some of it I think is, I don't know if it's nonsense or I just don't fully buy some of the narratives that are out there. But we'll see. We'll see what this ends up meaning. Again, I think if anything, Ed Policy's maybe getting out in front of some of the naming rights stuff. Now, by the way, these are also very minor in terms of, when we're talking about the grand scheme of things, but I think it just kind of goes to the overall plan of kind of nickel and diming yourself up some revenue. A hotel in your Titletown district is not going to bring in $500 million in revenue. But that, plus this, plus those, plus these, plus that, plus the, it all will start to add up. So when you talk about like naming rights on the training facility, that might be like $1 million a year, up between like $1 million and $5 million a year. Drop in the freaking bucket. But that's kind of the idea. There are a bunch of little drops in the bucket. In fact, naming rights on a stadium in general would be a drop in the bucket. You're talking up to maybe $25 million? It's a lot of money, but it's not solving a whole lot of problems. But we'll see how it goes. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. We won't do a third segment because this is kind of all of it for today. So I will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.